Welcome to Behind the DM Screen. This is the weekly podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and pitfalls of being a dungeon master. We are joined by a guest today, our good friend Jennica.
Hi, thank you.
We'll go around and introduce ourselves. My name's Ian. I'm the head of creative content at WorldSmith.
I'm Cameron. I make our social media posts.
I'm Matt. I'm the CEO, so I do the businessy, boring stuff.
And I'm Jennica, and I am here as a guest. And I DM, and I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love role-playing games, and I'm also a filmmaker and a mental health professional. So,
Well, we're just so happy to have you.
thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, one of the things that let's just dive right into it. What's your story with D&D? When was the first time you played D&D or RPGs, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I did ask this question prior, but if we're going RPGs generally, I started as a child playing video games. Mm-hmm. But with Dungeons and Dragons, I started, I think 9 years ago.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. My very first session was like in college, like right out of high school, with some friends who, it was just a group of 5 of us in one of the dorms, and they were like, "Hey,
Perfect.
come
Classic.
play
Yeah.
D&D," and I was like, wait, I get to do storytelling and I get to like make up characters, and it's fantasy world, so that was all very appealing to me. I had a long-standing group for years, and that was the one I DM'd in the longest. But that group, we played for a really long time. I had to actually talk about an experience where for an audition recently where I had to talk about an experience where something happened at a potluck or a barbecue, and I talked about a D&D session we had where our friends announced that they were having twins at the end of the session.
Cool.
So it was like, yeah, I just feel like D&D
That's awesome.
is like one of the best ways to build community and to be creative. And I think as an artist, D&D is one of the only things that allows you to like expand and flex all of your abilities as an artist. I have friends who are makers, who make maps, who make like tactile pieces, who make minis. I have friends who are really good at storytelling. I have friends who are visual artists who paint and draw things. Like, I think it is expansive in that way. And it also builds your friend group. Like, you bond a lot when you play D&D. So
Yeah, totally. How so in that first game, were you DMing that very first group then? You dove wrote it right in?
No, I was playing. My very first character I ever played was, surprise, a half-elf wizard. So textbook for me.
So iconic.
Yeah, because my brain is like, I must be the smart one in the party. So when I rolled for my stats, I was like, highest stat, intelligence. Absolutely. And then, and I was like, constitution, whatever, which got me into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, as a wizard in particular.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not the right thing to do. But it was great. It was so fun. So that first game, I think we played every week for like a semester, basically. So it was pretty short, a short campaign. But the next group, we played for years together. So we went through a bunch of different things. I think, started out as a wizard in that one as well. And then another one of our friends DM'd, and I got to be a barbarian, which was
Polar opposite.
so fun.
I do often find I'm on a similar spectrum where I'm either playing a wizard or a half orc.
Yeah.
It's basically one or the other, and I don't really go for much for the middle ground.
Why do it? Why go for the middle?
Yeah, exactly.
When I DM'd, I actually did like a homebrew mix of my homebrew stuff with Curse of Strahd. So I did a module, which was really fun because I love vampires.
Yeah.
Except spoiler, and maybe this is controversial too, never seen all the Twilights. Like, I'm not into Twilight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've never even read all the Twilights.
I've never played Curse of Strahd, so we have that in common. We have a controversial take in common. Yeah.
So I love vampires, but I love vampires. Like What We Do in the Shadows. I just love vampires.
What We Do in the Shadows is hilarious.
It's so good.
Did your Curse of Strahd campaign have What We Do in the Shadows vibes? Because I would love that.
Strahd comes out and he's like doing tons of bits.
What's the character he does when he's like in the out of town and Mark Hamill's hunting him down?
Oh.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a great
Manhattan. So, no, but for the homebrew, I had everybody meet in my my garage.
Mm-hmm.
Not too dissimilar from
I was about
a
to say,
garage
as we are
this.
meeting in my garage.
And everyone was sitting in a circle, and I had put class and like location, like a sentence on a piece of paper, and folded them up and put them in a little bowl. And I was like, okay, you're just gonna randomly draw your class and then where your character begins in the story.
Oh, that's fun.
That's really fun.
That's a good way to do
Homebrew.
things.
Thank you. Yeah. So it was part of my homebrew. So it was just like, this is where you begin. Then they got to build their characters after, and then we came to the first session. And so I had to basically had some people start in a prison context. Like some of them were prisoners because this was like a very like racist, classist world where like a religion had taken over, and so they had dark elves and underdark were being discriminated against, so a lot of them were in prison, and then magic users were also like going underground because they were afraid of magic users. So we had like some of them, one of them had like left being a guard, one of them had been like in port, coming into port from a shipwreck. One of them, some of them were in the prison, some of them were members. So it was like they all had to come to the same location, but had different reasons. But what was hard about that was like why they would unify as a party. So we had to do a lot of work together, like in the first sessions, to decide like why would this character ever leave being one of these guards people and like side with a prisoner and help them escape. And so that was a big learning curve.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But we
I was gonna
did
say,
it.
did you like just have everybody run? Like, was everybody sitting at the same table and just like taking turns individually, totally
Kind
separate
of.
spaces, kind of?
Kind of. I mean, some of them were physically together
Cool.
and knew each other. Like there was a couple in real life in the campaign, and their characters were tied.
Cool.
So it's like some of them did know each other already, and I gave them the time before the first session to get those pieces figured out. But some of them were kind of isolated, so we had to say like, okay, they're here, but you're in the same building. But what are you doing, and why? And so that campaign required me to do a lot of prepping. Not that DMing doesn't ever require prepping, it does. But I would spend, I think, from even all the way to the end of it, to help like really make their stories flourish and bring out characters that would be unique to each character, I'd probably spend up to sometimes 3 or 4 hours prepping a week for that particular campaign. And we'd play weekly, which I think was really lucky, because it's so hard to get your friends together to commit to one night to do something.
No kidding.
It's hard to do.
It's the hardest part of D&D, I would say.
It honestly probably is.
I think so.
That was your first time DMing with all of that fun stuff.
And
That's great.
we played that campaign for 3 years.
Wow.
So we went through COVID too.
Wow,
through that
cool.
campaign. So we also experienced moving it onto Roll20 and doing it on an online format with Discord.
Yeah.
So we experienced that whole part of it too. So going from making my maps tactile and like still sharing them online to making them fully online was a huge shift for me as well. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm relearning so much.
Yeah, totally.
But by that time we were like kind of in Curse of Strahd, so I had mixed them so that they encountered him multiple times, and he was harder each time they encountered him until they finally defeated him at the end. So
That's very fun. And did you kind of wrap up? That was the full 3 years was basically that one Curse of Strahd timeline,
yeah,
storyline.
it was that homebrew timeline. Some people died in it, and left the game. And so,
Did they roll up new characters, or was it more like I need to take a break from the game, so I'm gonna die kind of thing?
One person was like, not, and this is a hard thing as a DM, I think. Sometimes you do all this prep and then you do like need your players to be engaged. Like they need to come ready to play. And I do think some people forget that like that like if you don't come with any like engagement, then it's really hard for the DM to engage you. Like they can't do all the work for you to engage with the game. And so I had one player who just was like very disengaged, and he was like, I don't really care what happens. I don't really. And so I was like, well, I'll just kill you. He died. He died and left. But then everybody else went on. And like the character he was tied to like grieved him and got something special from his character to help her through the next.
Honestly, that's like such a great move. Like better to have someone make like a graceful, narratively motivated exit than to have one player kind of like bring down like the engagement of the whole group.
Totally, because it's like everyone's playing, everyone's having a great time. They're like, oh my gosh, we're here, and he's just like, on his phone, or just like, wait, what? It's my turn.
Right.
And I have like little pet peeves as a DM, as a player too.
Do tell us all of them. Tell us everyone.
Okay, everybody. Some of my pet peeves, one of my biggest pet peeves is just when people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if we're in initiative, if we've rolled initiative and we're in a battle, bro, you gotta be ready.
Yeah.
Like, turn order. It's either visually up there for you, because sometimes, we'd have TVs. Like, there's so many ways we've played D&D. Or your DM is like, this person's on deck. Like, I would always say, this person's next, and then you've got these 2 next people on deck. By the time it's my turn, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if what happened in between changes things, I'll shift a little bit. But, like, I know my character.
Yeah.
But when people are like, oh, it's my turn. And then they're like, what do
Flipping
I...
through their character
What
sheet.
spells do I have again?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like...
What does Ray of Frost do?
What are we doing, you guys?
It's on your paper. Read.
That is like my major pet peeve, because I don't want to slow down the...
It bogs down the
down the
game so
playing.
bad.
Because battling is so fun, but it can take so long.
If people don't know what they're doing, it drags out.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But I also really want to encourage people who haven't played to just like figure it out. So it's like a mix of, I love having new people who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. But as long as they're present and they want to be there, that's my favorite thing possible. Like when people are present and want to have fun and are engaged. You don't have to be good at it or experienced, you just have to be present.
Yeah.
Totally.
But I think the only other thing I don't love is when people take a really long time to decide what they're gonna do, not in battle but in general. Like when they're like, okay, there, that there's a bunch of Fae in this tent, and then they have zombies here, and you're kind of outside, and everyone's like, well,
If we flank from the right, and then we send a harpy over, or a familiar
and
over
like
to the
45
left.
minutes goes by, and I'm like, if this was a real life situation, like
They're gone.
They would have all like killed you by now.
Have
Like,
you guys ever set a timer on the players? I've done that before, where I'm like, they've spent 2 minutes just talking about what to do, and so I pull out my phone. I'm like, okay, you have 30 seconds.
that's really smart. I love that.
I don't do that. I just, when I get annoyed when it's been too long, I'm like, somebody, like, I just change up the story.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
like,
just progress the plot
and
sometimes.
They all leave.
Yeah,
or it'll
exactly.
be like you see someone coming out of the tent with a lantern or something, and then people are like, "Oh gosh, darn it, we have to make up our minds quickly."
I think some people are too precious about their characters. I think that's where that stems from.
Interesting.
Like, I think we don't want to kill our babies.
Right.
You know, we're like, no, I built this, and I feel so, and I had someone draw an image of it for me. But I'm like, actually, letting your character get into a dangerous situation is one of the best things you can do for your character ever, because then you are playing, first of all, and that's the part of D&D that is not real life. Like,
right.
I can throw, my Aarakocra into whatever. Like, they can fly. So, like, I'll have them fly, and they get shot, and then they get shot down, and they're injured, and then the rest of my party has to see if they can get to me to save me. That's badass.
It's just part of the story.
Fun.
Yeah,
Like, I
totally.
think that is one of the things players need to know always. Is like, don't be too precious with your characters. Be willing to let them go through something that you yourself can't, right? Like,
Like, why else are you role playing?
role play. Let them, like, if they die, you'll get to build a new character that you like just as much, and maybe in a future campaign bring that character back. Who knows?
Totally.
And like, I love when DMs build in like characters that have died into the lore. Like, I have a very close friend who's a DM of mine now. I'm in multiple campaigns now, but I'm always open to being in more because I love that so much. I do want to DM again, but he I helped introduce him into D&D, so shout out Steven, my dear friend, I love you. I introduced him to D&D, and his first character he ever played in a campaign we were in together is now like legendary in other campaigns because he's like played him across things, and then he died, and then like now he has left things behind, and other characters in new campaigns get to experience him that way. It's
That's
so
cool.
cool.
That's very
That's
cool.
why I'm like, don't be precious with them. Let them die and let them be epic.
Right.
Yeah,
So that you can make new things.
I'm curious as someone who like because I know that you're an actor and a storyteller and a writer and like all those things. So like I sometimes get well, not flack, but we just often laugh about the fact that the table. I've never read the Dungeon Master's Guide. I just never read it.
That's fine.
I'm actually curious because part of the reason why is because I'm like, well, I understand the tenets of a good story and I know how to tell a good story. So I'm curious about in that transition from you maybe playing your first game of D&D to DMing, what type of like resources, if any, did you read to like prep you for that, or did you just kind of like dive in and just kind of figure it out as you went?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I definitely did buy like the materials. Like I got the Dungeon Master's Guide and I got the Compendium of Monsters and I got like Xanathar's Guide and like some extra things. And I did read through them in a cursory manner. I didn't read them fully. But I did want to know, like, I do think it is good to at least look at this stuff and say, where is the gap for me personally, right? And, like, where can I fill that gap? Because I do think, to your point, I know how to craft a story. I know how to craft a world. Like, when I was playing, I was like, oh, this is what I would go home after and I'd write down notes and be like, okay, this is like how my character's going to do this in the next session. But then also, this is what I would do if I was creating this world, you know, kind of this, because world building and creating
then you submit notes to your DM and be like, you did a good job last session. Here's some story notes.
I did not do that.
You're really lacking the third act structure.
Yeah, exactly. This scene lacked a little bit of tension. If I could suggest a plan and a payoff, maybe near the beginning of the session.
I did not do that part. But like as an actor too, like practicing being really in character, also including voices, and I am very fortunate that I used to play music at BlizzCon, and so I got to meet the Critical Role guys and Matt Mercer. And I was a DM at the time, and I was like, Matt, I just need to tell you, like I would do anything to. I think this is the best. It's the best meeting. I would do anything to like play with you. I just think you're the coolest. Thank you so much for inspiring me. And he was so nice and so cool.
That's rad. That's very
and so
cool.
I feel like Critical Role also just changed, I think, what people thought about D&D, which is great. But I think, again, like you're creating, the world is going to always be being built as you create it together. It's that co-creation element that makes it magical. And so really all you need is the foundation. The one thing I think DMs do need is to know how to run the battles, first of all. Like run an encounter. Do you know how to run an actual encounter in terms of like telling your players what to do after they roll initiative, explaining to them like this is who's gonna go next, knowing what your monsters do, because I think that can be a gap for a lot of DMs, because that's not what you do as a player. You don't do any of those pieces. It's one thing to like build a world and be like, this is what it looks like and this is who you meet and this is, but you also have to make sure that all the areas they go to connect. Like there's a reason, and if they're like, well, we want to walk through this wood, and you're like, oh shit, I have no clue what happens after that.
Totally.
Like one of my DMs who I think is so excellent, we went into a boat, like he was like, here's the town, and then we went into a gambling boat off the river. So it was like, it was attached to the dock, or on the ocean, it was attached to the dock, but like
like a casino situation on the water.
And we went in there and we played in there for like a month. And he goes, we leave that, and we like blew it up, all this stuff happened, right? And he's like, I just need you all to know I had nothing prepped for that boat. I was not expecting you to go in there.
Right.
And then he had to make it up. So I think as a DM, what helped me when I first started was like really, and I had seen other DMs, so I was able to like kind of get some sense of like what they do. But I had to really sit down and be like, how do I have an encounter and prep the monsters and like know exactly what they do and how they would behave, and know what my NPCs are gonna do and where they're gonna go, like in the moments that the battle isn't happening, because there are like the things that players don't think about that could slip between the cracks as a DM that you're responsible for. Like you're responsible for everything else. And so you do kind of have to hold that, like, oh yeah, actually you are on a boat. So when you cast Fireball, part of it did light on fire, and now the boat's on fire. I have to think about those things. So I think that was the type of work I needed to do, and I ended up doing that regularly, right? Like, okay, now, and I would write for myself, if they go here, this is what's there. If they go here, this is what's there. And then I wouldn't like detail flesh it out, but I would write all of my things, and then I'd have like who's there, like the characters there, so that I could pull them up quickly if I needed them.
Yeah.
So you said you were playing in your 3-year campaign, you were prepping for like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
Did you find that time like drastically reduced the more you played, or do you feel like that amount of prep is like super critical for a session?
It's a great question. I would say it like ebbed and flowed in terms of how long I would prep, but it got a little bit longer near the end because I was weaving in such intimate, intricate story details for each of the characters. Like one of them had like this ghostly visage of his lost love come visit him all the time, and by the end she like did appear to him, and like there was a pendant he had gotten through the thing that allowed her to appear, and so there's all this stuff I had to weave in. But I would say it did reduce. Like it mostly reduced because I knew what I was doing, but it would depend on the week, really. But I also liked it, so it was like I would end up being like, oh, 3 hours just passed.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like here's my 4 hours of D&D. It was like, oh my god, I've been doing this for 3 hours.
You kind of have to enjoy it to do it that much.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very similar experience for me in how I Dungeon Master prep for my sessions. Yeah. It's a very similar amount of time, and I feel like everything that you were like listing out that you like prep for those sections, that's like essentially how I prep a lot of my stuff too. Yeah. I'd be really curious to ask you, like, when you ended up switching to Roll20 in Discord, how was that transition for you? Like, what did you do for maps? Like,
it was such a learning curve. It was great because we had like been playing with it a little bit, but really we did it because of the pandemic, right? So we were all quarantined, and so that was part of the reason my prep was still long. I think actually it probably would have been shorter if we were in person, but because I was on the online format exclusively, that took longer because I then was getting into building maps and making sure I could move the characters and stuff. And now when we play, it's like we can just use D&D Beyond's maps, and I think it's a little more streamlined than Roll20 was at the time. Because it was like for the maps, then you'd have to have them saved in certain spots and then pull them up and then move the characters onto it. And then like
that program was so creaky. I remember when COVID hit and suddenly everybody was like, we all want to play D&D online. And there was like this one platform that kind of was doing it. But I remember being on there being like, what the heck is this interface? It was so clunky.
Hard to use. And then I'd be like, oh, sorry guys, the map. Oh, how do I get rid of fog? And oh my gosh. So that was hard.
Even D&D Beyond's newest one though, it's just like VTTs are within themselves like just difficult programs, right?
Because
like even if like for someone like me, I play a lot virtually still, and like I have Patreons that I'm subscribed to for like pre-made maps and everything, and it's like I find a map that I love. It's perfect for my story. I bring it back. I have to like download it, re-download it onto like the thing.
Totally.
And
sometimes
I upload it to my
fix its
session.
formatting. Sometimes fix it so that it fits on D&D Beyond and then gets uploaded. I do think D&D Beyond is so good for character building.
Totally.
I think that especially for new players, it walks you exactly through what you have to do.
Totally.
It's so streamlined in that way. But I do think that for DMs, we still need like better resources, and like I love is playing in
funny.
But I do think that like playing in person, I love maps, tactile maps where you can move your characters, but that also is a lot of work. So it's like right now I think people do and I'd be curious to hear what you guys do, but do a lot of a blend of virtual mapping with in-person play. So like you're in person with each other, getting to interact, but then your map is still virtual up on a TV screen and you're moving your characters that way so that it essentially is easier for the DM to navigate between areas and stuff. But I do think that is one of the hard things about D&D in general is that you're moving through these big worlds with lots of stuff. They're like fully inhabited worlds, you know, and so being able to make sure that you can do that as a DM and keep the story moving is really important. And you're balancing so many people at once and their different desires. And And you're always going to have that fun rogue character who just wants to do what they want to do.
Right.
That's like so counter to the group.
Right.
Or they're like just being really funny and they're kind of distracting everybody from whatever. And they're like, I want to talk to Santa Claus. And you're like, okay. Like, so I think like that's a big part of being a DM too, is balancing those things and figuring out how to make some of it easier, which you would hope would be the mapping part.
Right.
Like you want the visual elements to be the easier elements because you have to balance the story.
It does feel like a damn if you do, damn if you don't. It's like either you do no map and then it's kind of like, people have all these questions and they're not clear about the way it is. But then you do a map and then somebody's like, yeah, but what's like 60 feet over that direction?
Why don't we gamble on this boat for a month?
Exactly. Or they're like, what is that? Yeah, they inevitably then want to go somewhere where there isn't a map, off the map, or isn't a map, and then all of a sudden, if you're locked into the expectation of wherever you go and have an encounter, there's a map. Then all of a sudden,
if you're doing that, then you're definitely railroading players.
And that's it's hard to not railroad. Like I want to have a lot of like grace for DMs because, you know, in a campaign I had a DM where I was like, I want to do this fun creative thing. And he's like, you can't. It doesn't work. And I was like, oh, okay. And like, I hated it. But also I understand why that happened because I think that sometimes it can be hard to hold it all in your brain, especially as a new DM.
Totally.
And you think like, oh, I'm good at storytelling. Or, oh, I'm good at like this rolling the die and seeing what happens, but actually it's like so much more than that. It's like in interactions that aren't fights, you know, like your characters will want to do something wild and you have to be like, okay, how would that impact this world? What happens? What's fun for them?
Right.
And you kind of have to go with it. So there's a lot to learn, but it's still, I think, worth doing. Yeah. But not everybody wants to be a DM, and I think that's also okay. Some people just love to play.
Agreed.
When I prepped my first like real homebrew world, I spent, I think it was like 3 to 4 months just like, here's all the islands, these are all the quest lines on each island. But within like a month of playing that game, I realized the quests that are tied to players' backstories are like 100 times more interesting than anything I could have ever planned.
Especially for the players themselves.
Right. And I ended up throwing most of the stuff I made in the trash because it's like they don't care about that. It's just distractions for like what's actually going on. And I find a lot of times the story kind of makes itself.
Totally.
That's so well said. I think that's very true.
It's interesting because I actually think paradoxically, I'm curious to see if you all disagree with this, but like I think that most people who are DMing for the first time actually over prepare because they assume that their DM has way more prepared. Like I think most players assume that DMs knew the beginning of the story from the end in a way that I think most DMs really don't. That like, because what you learn when you're DMing is that the players ultimately do a massive part of creating the storyline of their choices and where they go and what excites them and what interests them. So I do think that's a common experience of first time DMing is you kind of build up this whole world thinking they're going to be interested in all this stuff that's on my sheet of paper, when in reality they're more interested in what's on their sheet of paper. And then you kind of are like, oh, okay, how do I take what's on your sheet of paper and then like remix it so that I can hand it back to you a little bit.
And I think at its core, right, like Dungeons and Dragons is an iterative community storytelling game. Like that's what we're doing here. And I think like a lot of it, as you were talking, I was thinking about writing, like just being a writer, right? And wanting to write books and me growing up with fantasy worlds and Lord of the Rings and the things that I wanted to live in and thinking about like, well, what if there was an offshoot? What happens in this part of, then, of course Tolkien had it, but let's say he didn't. But I think like he had the Silmarillion. So
exactly. We didn't have much to brainstorm in that department.
Exactly. But I do think that...
You built a language. That's too much prep.
Don't build a language. But I do feel like what ends up working the most is again just like being as a DM having the flexibility to know that you can handle what your players bring to the table. So like trusting that the world you built, and even if you just go chunk by chunk, which is what I ended up doing in my campaign, because I also was initially like, do I need to build out this whole thing? Granted, I do think that like modules in different campaigns do it for you. You can just read a whole campaign and be like, okay, this is what happens. This is where you go next. This is what's going to happen. Here's who you're going to encounter. But when you're homebrewing, it's like you think you need to basically write your own book. You know, you're like, I need to write the world. But I do think you can go chunk by chunk. Like you can take it as the players play it. So you're like, here's what happened last week. And here's all the notes I have on what happened. And the players have their notes on what they got and what happened. Now I know they're going to move here, and I'm actually going to add someone to this area that I didn't have there before because I think it'd be more interesting for these characters, or I think it'd be a fun little thing to throw in. So I think having the flexibility to hold whatever your characters bring to the table, your players bring to the table, is one of the best things you can have as a DM, because I do think there is such a thing as getting too locked into your idea and over-preparing.
Totally. That's true. Well, very wisely said.
Thank
I
you.
think that is great advice for new DMs.
Yeah. Be flexible, have fun, and let your players die. Kill your players. Make things hard.
Such a sweet note to end on, and I could not agree more.
Make things hard for them.
Well, thank you so much, Jennica, for coming on and chatting about
This
your
was so
wisdom
fun.
as a GM. We super appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anyways, you bet.
It's great.
Any outlets, any shout outs for
Should people follow you on social media,
Oh,
or should they do
yeah.
other things like that?
I mean, you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Jennica__Anusua, which
I'll put that in the
you
bio.
can see it. Also, I'm making a cool film. So follow me in my filmmaking journey. But also, I'm hoping I get to be here more with my D&D friends.
We would love to.
D&D.
We won't be seeing the last of you, I
Thank
think.
you.
So,
Shout out to my D&D friends who I love. Love you guys. This is my
very much so.
love to you.
Thank you all, and we will see you next week.
See ya.